Awesome. I'm going to ask one quick question and pass it off to my colleague. My question is for Mike, Mr. Feigelman, or your colleagues. And my question is this. You made a statement with regards to linking the safety and security of the Jewish community here in Canada to biased coverage from the news media. And I would like you to take a moment and just expand on that in terms of the consequences that are there.
Sure. Sorry, you cut out there for a second. I'll speak to a bit of a portion, then I'm going to hand off to my colleagues on Zoom as well. The first thing is what's reported today becomes domestic and foreign policy tomorrow. And I echo Mr. 𝐦𝐿𝐹's comments about a very, let's call it a jaundiced marketplace of ideas. What we have seen in the past couple of years, most certainly as it relates to the CBC, is the elevation of radical voices, giving them a platform, giving them undue legitimacy, which we feel really does serve to elevate the fringe and marginal voices who are traditionally, again, on the fringe, trying to work their way into the mainstream. And then it serves fundamentally to fan the flames of hatred against Israel and the Jewish community. More specifically, HR Canada Charitable Organization and 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞 did a long-term 2-year study on the Hamas-Israel war, which found that there was this asymmetry in the CBC's coverage. Most specifically, that it elevated radical voices like Independent Jewish Voices, which is a radical anti-Zionist hate group, and giving them this platform. Again, it bestows this kind of credibility which they don't deserve. But I'll allow Dr. Haran Shaninarkis and Amanda Eskanazi to speak in more detail about their work.
So I'll just say briefly, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me right? Hopefully? Okay. So I'm here as a scientist, and if there are any questions about the research we conducted, I'm happy to answer. I'll just say that taking into account the asymmetry that's already inherited in the Israeli-Gaza war, we found some very troubling evidence showing, for example, how the CBC is using headlines in order to promote one side of the story, such that even when you compare that to the actual reporting by the CBC,
Madame la Présidente, il y a un enjeu avec l'audio encore une fois.
Madam Chair, there's an issue with the audio. The interpreters are struggling to interpret.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we don't have good sound for your intervention there.
Is that better right now? Or if not, maybe Amanda can take that? Is it?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay.
Okay, maybe I can try to speak to this then, and just sort of offer one final thought on this, that, my colleague Haran is a scientist, and he deals with data and numbers and, objective truth. I'm also a scientist, but a different kind. I'm a social scientist, and I look at behavior and trends and sort of human behavior and how people react to what it is that they see in the news and what they are presented with. And when we have a organization like the CBC, which is a Canadian institution that is supposed to be well respected, has a history in our country of being the place where you are supposed to be able to get real, honest news about what's going on in the world. And they are beating a very one-sided drum, a very one-sided narrative. And that's what's being offered to Canadians. Of course, Canadians are going to be angry. They're going to be upset because what they're being told, the reality is upsetting and angering. And when you only present one side of what is going on, you end up with a very ideologically, you end up with an ideology, you don't end up with reality and with the facts. And so I think when you are feeding Canadians, the CBC is not telling Canadians how to think about an issue. They're showing Canadians what to think about the issue. And that should not be the role of our public broadcaster. And as, to just return it to your question, Mrs. Thomas, that if you have consistently one-sided narratives like this, of course you are going to have people who feel that they need to do something about it. And when we have one-sided narratives that demonize an entire group of people, because that's what's happening, then of course you are going to have people who are angry about that and feel that they need to do something about that. And that, unfortunately, is what we're seeing on the streets in Canada right now and what we saw this weekend in Toronto.
Yeah, Mr. Fegelman, it was very interesting when you said that you indicated that a CBC executive said that the network shouldn't refer to Hamas as a terrorist group, even though the government of Canada has recognized them as a terrorist group since 2002. Why should the public be alarmed at this?
Well, in the Canada Gazette, it is publicly listed that they are a terrorist group. Their day job is to strap a suicide vest on themselves and with the intent of maiming and murdering innocents. When our media sanitize language, it effectively legitimizes the actions, or at least it distorts. People aren't fully aware that what these people do, what their intentions are, is to wipe Israel and Jews off the map. So it is really misrepresenting the facts on the ground. Language matters. Diction matters.
Now, your organization did do a deep dive into the coverage that happened throughout CBC since October the 7th. Can you just reiterate some of that coverage? And you allege it was highly biased.
Well, I'd like to recount a couple of examples of CBC bias that we've come across. The first, on February 16th, CBC Radio Canada's correspondent 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞, who was later suspended, uttered an anti-Semitic trope on air when claiming that, and I quote, the Israelis, in fact the Jews, finance a lot of American politics and control a big machine. It's a clear-cut anti-Semitic trope. CBC continues to use reporters who've expressed radical anti-Israel views. They have a journalist named 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞 who in 2021 signed an open letter boldly proclaiming that there should be more pro-Palestinian coverage. That's just at the CBC. I would refer you to my colleague Amanda Eskenazi, who can talk in specifics about some of the results of the study that they did about the CBC's bias.